Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or maybe even good night, but whatever the time is, there should always be time for Eat the Storms, the poetry podcast. My name is Damien B, Donnelly, and today we have a very special episode. Today is the audio companion to The Storms Issue 5, our printed journal of poetry, prose and visual arts. And on behalf of myself as Editor-in-Chief and the remarkable Rhona Greene as my Issue 5 sub-editor, thank you all so much for welcoming this storm into your home and into your hearts. We had our first launch yesterday, a live in-person launch in an Elizabethan castle here in Dublin, Rathfarnham Castle. So thank you to Catheryne and all the team at Rathfarnham Castle and to the OPW for hosting us. Further thanks, of course, go to Dublin UNESCO City of Literature, Dublin City Council, Fingal Arts and Fingal County Council. Because without their funding, their support, the journal would not be possible. And of course, that means that without our contributors, the pages would be empty and today's episode would be rather silent. So thank you so much to our incredible 89-star stormers who have brought this issue to life. And before we begin, I'm going to read you the introduction to this issue, and it begins with a quote from S.C. Flynn. The ancient dream of mortality has fluttered against unbreakable glass. We open the 5th issue of The Storms with a contemplation on existence, the study of life in the poem Ayurveda by S.C. Flynn, and what follows is essentially the essence of our limited days, our prints, paddings and percussions on this archipelago of the soul. While confronted by the gates of hell and that onslaught of voices rising from the amphitheatre of the damned. Along the way, we find ourselves in the company of gods, leaping from this mortal coil to bathe in the belly of the sanctuary. In myth, magic, as if the once mighty may offer us company, comfort and condolence from the cold hand of reality and its caged animals and the misunderstandings of those closest to us, who would know us so well, had we been born with their tongue and not with that of an alien. Throughout this storm, we are pulled to the water, away from the wildfires to the break of birth, the flotsam metamorphoses of hope, the shelter of boats, the murmurs of sand on shore and all the way to the tay and the lure of a consoling third pint in the hands of our featured prose writer Sean McNichol. When confronted by these apparently unending days of human against human, our attention is drawn to the beasts who roam before us, and who will reign again if our rage continues to be our ruin. Hinting at that once infamous arc viewed from the other angle, this 5th storm offers refuge to nature's bounty. From its finest form to its collapse in our own hands, critiquing our own inability to permit ourselves to be anything other than oppressor. Here we find deer, whale, dolphin, fireflies, grasshoppers, gulls, cicadas, elephants, dogs, snakes, bees, oxen, herons, doves, minnows, ravens, horses hunting for their own survival, while we hunt each other for bounty, blood, and border. This journey, still in its infancy as I read these lines, has been made all the more exquisite by the company I got to keep, not just the creators who make this issue what it is, but by the blessed lights who join me, my sub-editors, and this time Dublin North and South have never felt so comfortable sharing space. For her radiance, her curiosity, her ability to get lost in wormholes of explanations, her strength, honour, compassion and companionship, all my thanks for the curation of the following pages go to Rhona Greene. It has been an honour to wave crash this storm together. We have had bright days and lighter Zoom nights, accompanied by trumpets as we laughed, harmouths as we gossiped, along with body shakes, ear flaps and shimmies. This issue bequeaths its final words to our featured poet, Özge Lena, and the tongue of the blue whale, so huge that 50 humans could dance on it. On the surface of this world today, missiles splurge. Somewhere, in here, let these lines be the lexicon of community, creativity, and a current of waves we can release to diminish the screams, the surges, the moans. As Ola said in her poem, It is said that before everything was the ocean. My name is Damien B. Donnelly, and this is Eat the Storms, a poetry podcast celebrating issue 5 of The Storms, our journal of poetry, prose and visual arts. Thank you so much for tuning in on platforms like Spotify, Apple, Breaker, Podbean, Player FM, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Castbox, Podcast Addicts, iTunes, Amazon Music and YouTube. And now, let me present to you our star stormers of issue 5. I hope you enjoy the show. And to start us off in this first section, we have S.C. Flynn, followed by Elizabeth Fevyer, Marie Marchand, Helen Laycock, John Gray, Jonathan Ukah, Rekha Valliappan, Belinda Subraman, Özge Lena, Mo Schoenfeld, Merril D. Smith, Nuala O'Connor, Georgia May, Pixie Bruner, Francesca Leader, Jordan Cobb, Catheryne Gagnon and Rhona Greene.
S.C. Flynn, Ayurveda. Nothing real will ever be enough. The ancient dream of immortality has fluttered against unbreakable glass for 1,000 lifetimes without getting in. Countless hopes lie buried in separate graves, and yet it still persists. Humanity, always caught in the grip of the present when it really desires forever, wants age to be practice for the future, a deep black mouth with a throat of light, the unformed songs of endless years to come, masking the atonal slash of nothingness.
Elizabeth Fevyer, High Water. The day the tide came in, they ripped my heart loose, tossed him on my chest, a slippery seal. On damp, distended sheets, our lungs apart, I tugged the wet ropes taut, made space for him on me. His in-breath came like sea retreating, just before the crash, and when the acid rose, they took him from me, weighed him, dashed the waves until his wails erased the stone, then set us down together, 2 canoes, and magicked something strong inside my veins. Without compass or map, our charts were set to lose. The piece of rope between us cut. Nothing remained except this residue of salt, our limbs afloat, a flotsam metamorphosis of hope.
Hello, my name's Marie Marchand, and this is my poem, Stardust in My Bones. They say there's stardust in my bones. I believe it. The elemental resemblance is uncanny, a cosmic bipolarity, sputtering flame. Some days I shine so brightly people shield their eyes. Other days my energy spirals to the center of the earth and I go supernova. I am left in a curious vacuity that stings my lungs when I try to breathe. It's a formidable calling, being made of stardust.
Helen Laycock, Grinderdrop. Growl-throated motorboats are prowling Faroe waters, snarling sea slicers circling, propeller tongues sampling salt stew. Hunters are herding white-sided dolphins to the shallows, salivating as our stomachs churn. They slap the swell's bounteous butt, and wave whirl serrates to saw wheel, ragged fins hooked between peaked teeth. Waning moons, white spewed in star spume, bodies bend, squirming in the blows. Froth, flesh, thrashing, hacking, gouging, gushing, the barbarian's blades red stripe and fillet. Hurled mouths, fear prized like dying oysters, dolphin screams flood rigger smiles as calves are carved and mourning mothers mutilated. The sea is thick with pulp, silver potholed. Crimson scorches my gaze, lips ooze pod blood. Tradition is insubstantial, like sea foam. Cold quiet, the tide whimpers at the pink shore as we weep, wishing that swirl was sunset.
The Gardener Relates by John Gray. My garden is a heart in daylight, a closed eye at night. It is a seed's endeavours and a snail's pace. My plants can live by sun and rain alone, but they take their names from the sound of my voice. I am not the origin story, just a tale teller with shears. For my flowers are children of themselves, but, with the poet's permission, I pretend fatherhood. Find the right words, and poems may even flower.
My name is Jonathan Ukah. An evening in spring. It was when I saw the ocean grow teeth that I felt the water was writing to me, that I learned how sharp water could be. The rusty wind confronted the quiet leaves, and there was no difference between them. That's how I knew that even rain could fly, when birds decide to sell their wings for food. My father said that I must secure the ground before I could spread my mat on the floor. If life had not taught me to be crude, I would have lived and died an honest man. I would have long learned how to love, without reciprocity, without prudence, or what the mind forms to be cunning, as an excuse for exacting revenge. I have abandoned pursuing happiness, after discovering the tricks of sorrow, in which my joy lies dormant each day. I dream of how to escape the traps of truth. What is my offense when I arrived in the world with bags of innocence, sachets of emptiness? Some say it's still the original sin that makes us privy to ancient crimes. Though we prattle and fly about like grasshoppers, we dredge up the old blotches of our ancestors, and within the umber of our condemnation, we find the circle of our guiltlessness. It's not the moon's fault to fulfill its destiny at night, that the sun is not brave enough to confront the dark. Until innocence wears the barb of bravery, and there is no star to shove the clouds aside to carry the sun into monumental brilliance. So I went through life flying like an eagle, whom men have learned to shoot without missing. I have mastered the art of flying without perching. Thank you.
Rekha, Valliappan, the bird. He listens in his standard way, as if he's sorting wooden crates, as if he's picking cantaloupes bloated to fullness in a produce aisle. First, the texture, then the feel for skin surface, then the sniff for heady fragrance, and then the shake's produced rattle. It's justified, he frets. His olfactory landscape is severely limited, what with battling tooth decay and blocked receptors, dealing with last season's spreading duckweed that has grabbed the hold of the river's rapid advancement, and his sinuses. In retrospect, he can't tell her of his temporary encampment, overpowered by the gathering stench of the slippery sludge. The aroma of the birthing moment is leading him on. The economy of the truth is his life will transform. His looming concern is he has gleaned the cantaloupe routine from the sporadic swished sounds, which echo sonorous and strained through the air. As soon as the new one is out, he tells himself over and over, like his emotion, this needs to be done. She twitches, groans, turns, rolls over to fetal position, the notion being impromptu cartwheels of botched actions in a pinched space. He is by her side, waiting, worrying. Both watch, wary, lips pursed, glance unsteady, his modified, hers blood-tinted brave, out of focus. Both have the same secrets to conceal, a protracted proboscis to stamen intimacy, from a seedling to plant, one to one, start to end, head to tail, to promised eternity. According to birthing law transformation, a skin can stretch to 9 times its size, whether the subject is a dromedary or a soft-shell turtle. Lean in closer, closer, closer. Discharge between breaths. In, out, and push, push, breathes a voice, remotely distant. Again and again, on track again. Her tummy rolls. He is once again unsure, but it is slightly reassuring. His, hers, his, hers, his, her. Damped. Tentative tiptoe full of hard edges, resurrecting mock tremors. In her, in him, in synchronous bright, holding their symmetric breaths, together, together, forever. From the beginning, when she had started to bloat out of sprung sea, her belly rowing at rapid pace in a semicircular sign of an othering action, make space for the new brood woo-too of the familiar with the unfamiliar design she has been unable to anticipate, pushing very hard, he to duplicate. Scooping up the weather-brown crinkly folds of her ears, he calls cauliflower flaps. When the sixth sense is crushing them with the weight of its logic, he pants, listening intently, embracing the seismic musculature ship apple within. His eyes are on pause. What he sees could snap. He cannot hear inflections. How much he can hear is too focused. A room full of best guesses. She is pitchfork-backed, locked tight in the wet folds of that worst bite. He's gasping for air, panting hard, then harder. She's wrung, exhaustion-swiped, water drops in trickles that resemble sweat, water falling in leaky faucets at the replication, at work from the inside. This is the time. This is the moment. It's arrived. Conjecture sways. The call has to crack, fret, a scream, a trumpet, a mew, a cry hidden in the burlap. They hang him, a squirmy double that turns many heads. In nervous anticipation, he gently prods something, bawling soft, limited edition, raspberry puckered, little trunk lifting, little eyes brilliant as still yellow suns when day is about to break, icky with swishing, gummy, cream white cherub.
This is Belinda Subraman from El Paso, Texas, reading you a poem inspired by my two art pieces in the storms. Tangles. Thoughts jam neural pathways where distractions divert, push back but cannot erase. Expressing tangles artistically, wild, organic growth, interwoven green with briars and flowers, thickets that bite and sting, hum with multi-layered life. Queen Anne's lace and goldenrod, blackberries, gooseberries, and bees, frogs and grasshoppers, butterflies by day, fireflies by night. 2. Disapproval hung in the air like smoke. Our world contained full ashtrays. Ashes smelled like home. Beltings were normal and frequent. Inferior status reinforcement, anger for existing, it seems, creating tangles for life. I loved lightning storms, thunder like a battlefield, lines down off the grid. We were one unit then, connected by an act of God. It was church. Weather can silence the ego of human domination momentarily. It also waters the thickets and tangles that sing of life unharmed, untamed by man.
Hello, I'm Özge Lena. First, I'd like to thank Damien and Rhona for selecting me as the featured poet of issue 5. And the Oscar goes to Spring breaks out, and the road is an ashen tongue before me, crawling toward the amber blossom of the wildfire on the horizon when I leave the city. In the evening news, I read that a big fallow deer goes viral while fleeing from the fire, high antlers aflame on the head like a pair of tiny trees. People name it Oscar. Cheers rise, tears shed as it steps on the scorching asphalt, runs madly only to collapse down in the middle of the city center, mouth open with a silent scream, caramel body still. The person who shoots that video instead of helping the animal is given an award. Later at midnight, I see my hair still smells of smoke, of soot, of the death of a rare, beautiful thing. I touch my scalp as if to find fresh branches regrowing, but instead, loneliness, ash, fur.
Hi, I'm Mo Schoenfeld, and my poem is entitled Recess 1975. When I was fashioned of freedom, knitted like the cardigan round my shoulders, dancing silhouette stitched to feet, I remembered light in my heart, with my step, at my back, a leap through wind to disconnect from shadow. Then the fated return to ground.
Hi, this is Merril D. Smith. I'm pleased to be a stormer again, and my poem is Namasani untangles her thoughts as she combs her hair. The air hums constantly,
with velvet vows, and I am delirious with diphthongs. Swoon as I sling slang, fling phrases into gyres of ever-never space. I hurl words on nettle spears, let them sparkle, just so. Diamond lighting the waves, fiddle plucking the stars. I breathe them in wind-sigh lullabies. Hush, hush, hush. I weave moonlight into silver song comforters for mothers, daughters, sisters, who dream of monsters and men. My own blood drip drops, forms rose questions that climb the sky's blue walls. I come with the scent of sea brine and honeysuckle, the scent of renewal, of hope in 1,000 summer daybreaks, and in winter's crimson-shadowed snow. All stories crash on time's rocks. They salt the seas with sibilant syllables, in crow exhalations, in stone-tossed ripples. No periods. They begin again. Thank you very much.
Nuala O'Connor. Girls. A phalanx of narcissi hugs the slope, above the fair green, their buds battened. A flamboyance of yellow flamingos, still but strained, waiting for clouds to combust, to heave their golden faces skyward, like teen girl sunbathers sucking up warm rays. These are no pool-gazing boys, stocious on their own beauty. They are light-gatherers, power-bringers, future mothers and sky-dwellers. These are our daughters, made of earth, made of sun.
My name's Georgia May, and this is my poem Minty Fresh Abandonment Issues. We are sat beneath the shade of a ginkgo tree, drinking in the calendula sky, wondering if acorns are edible, if pantheism is inherently pure or ignorant. At some point you walk away to go get lotto tickets, and leave the hum of object permanence behind you. A phantom limb. How I cling to it, groundless without the trace of your shoulders, your herbal essence and menthol cigarette scent. I need your aftershave like an emollient over my footloose life, but, of course, you don't know this when you leave me to go buy lotto numbers. The marigold skyline turning astringent, momentarily, until the bob of your head over the tin roofs in the car park spritzes some antifreeze over my stalemate being. That warm blanket sigh of relief when you return. Without you, I feel disintermediated from life, from ginkgo trees and playtime gambling, and the trace of your phantom limb scares me. The loss of it, the need for it, the hum you leave behind.
Dear D, Until Dublin, by Pixie Bruner. Dear D, when you say soon, I can hear the supernal black taxi, engine revving, waiting at the curb for us. Sitting there awaiting our passage in each of our coins. Impatiently tapping the wheel along to something inane on the radio until I put my suitcase in the boot. If we'd get into the late-night, lonely, womb-dark cab together, would our collision be that soon? Would the Greek driver look away in shame from the rearview mirror, or threaten us with getting out midway? Supernatural time bombs within us, with all their faulty timers, and all the ungrounded electricity and chemistry between us. I never voiced the question, the real one, the hidden one, the painful one. You know the one, but I see it between words, and it chills me. When is it happening next? How long do I have, dear one? Dee, save a spot for me there now, so our dream can come and go as we please, and because needs must. And for later, and even when you get there. But please, save me a dance just before. Let me fold into you like an origami swan. Just fold and bend and arch and hold. Hold back night. Hold back the sky. Hold back the heavens for the hells we seek before all the roads simply end. I will demand more than just one night. I'll take a week. However long it takes to hate love each other. Bear scars, physical and psychic, and a mutually assured destruction with joy. The poet Maudit will take turns as Rimbaud and Verlaine and Leonard and Marianne. I'll light your cigarette, adjust your tie, send you off. But here, now, this particular moment, we must always wait until we win the lottery. We are lousy angels, aren't we? I cannot swim the ocean blue, but I'd flood a Chattahoochee Liffey over you. Hold fast to your coins, as most people only get 2. I carry mine around in my otherwise empty wallet. I don't ever want to turn over your entire flat to find your loose change and the hard life currency. They link us. We fey folk gamble with death constantly. I've 4 silver coins from winning bets with Hades. He always throws me out for cheating. We can play Orpheus and Eurydice in a gender swap. Me cast as Eurydice in a Garbo-tailored tuxedo, leading you, a 3-piece suited Orpheus, out. We will ride the ferry out, wear the eyeliner a week for it. Soon means urgent. Soon means now. And now is as impossible as you love. It's as impossible as love. It's never clean, just how we like it. Damn it, Dee. The cruel, unnatural distance between existences. All poets are beautiful, an absolute unchanging truth. But some, just some, are just a little more beautiful than others. Love, in the intervals between song and psalms, are.
My name is Francesca Leader, and this is my poem. For all we know, Mother Teresa enjoyed snuff films. For all we know, Mother Teresa enjoyed snuff films. So let us defrock all our saints. Make no more gods, unless the Greek kind, complex and fallible and fun. The kind to have a beer with, but never trust your wife with. Let us apply dumpster diving pragmatism to wisdom's harvest. If the sandwich is still good, it's still good. Remove slimed spinach as needed, and consume in gratuitous hunger, without regard for provenance.
This is Jordan Cobb, reading Sabatier, After Woman Bitten by a Serpent, 1847, by Auguste Lessenger. I must tell you, I am no stranger to posing, to lovers' requests for cameras, the snap-click shutter of long exposures between my legs. I asked for them, the photos of my face, mouth open and eyes closed. Polaroids of positions I have tried, knees bent, body twisted, like proof there is no way to touch me gently. When I saw you again at Bologna, I realized, hoped, you must know what I mean. You, stretched out in a French sculptor's studio in spring, goose flesh raised in the false light of morning. Your flesh dipped and cast, one breath bound forever to stone. Did you feel it too? How satisfying it is to be a muse, to be told what to do. Relax your cheeks, point your toes, ignore the instinct to grasp for control. I'll admit, for me, some of it is jealousy. How someone took a block of marble and gave you immortality, a facelift, eternal Botox for the cellulite mind. But I haven't forgotten the secret wrapped around your wrist, the bite that's left you writhing on the flower bed, the only thing you are draped in, the unshed length of a snake.
Snakebite by Catheryne Gagnon. New symptom. The snake curled around my spine slackens and bares its teeth. If I'm lucky, I can trace every pinprick of pain back to its screaming birth, long before I knew how to hurt. I worry that my therapist sees me too clearly, vivid, visceral, like a slaughterhouse floor. I learned this too early. One of the first symptoms of a snakebite is a sense of impending doom. I remember reaching for the snake after it bit me, wanting to hold it. The teaching, the way pain feels, depends on how you hold it and how much you relinquish. Pull the knot of muscle apart, and there's something there, a very soft thing scrambling to exist. A glimpse, teeth full of venom retreating from the tender flesh of my leg. Warm summer air. I'm holding out my hand.
Rotten Apple by Rhona Greene. In the protected orchard of Eden time, blue skies dome the open air, a fervent anthem echoing the sacred Ave. Sun ripples quick silver trails through family trees, ripening heavenly apples spinning in Father's eye. Dewdrops, a rosary of joyful mysteries, cleansing first steps. Bite, sweet flesh, like coddling moth larvae, chrysalis safe fugitives in the rotting vestibules of your own burrowing. Fall, angel, apple, seed, change and fly.
And to start off the second section, we have Fionn Andrews, followed by Karen Chambers, Sue Finch, David Hanlon, Vicky Allen, Susan Richardson, Chris Jones, Emily Cullen, Chantel Powell, Özge Lena, Maeve O'Sullivan, Robert Freed Kenter, and Rhona Greene.
Fionn Andrews, Epithalamium for Zeus and Hera, after Hesiod, Theogony. When will you learn, dear God, that desire is the one unbreakable circuit, and though impulse will drive us eternally towards fulfillment, cravings inevitably persist, irrespective of achievement. Another day is awaiting. You will be lured again to fantasy, unable to calculate the cause of this, your fleeting urge to marry, your aloneness in that garden, the victim on this ground full of gods.
Karen Chambers. My friend and I chat about our marriages, while we chase our toddlers round the playground. Swing, slide, up, down, snack, slide, swing, high, high. And how it's hard some days to remember we still love each other. How it feels like we're just existing side by side. More snack, no, swing, up, up. She tells me how he works too much, how he's grumpy with the kids. I tell her about my bed of tangled limbs and how none of them are mine and my husband's. Up, up, round, round, fast, fast, no, stop, go. She tells me there's so little left to look forward to. I tell her how much I resent. Down, up, no, snack, more, more. Never spending time alone with him. Big jump, big, big, up, high. I'm sure it will get easier when they're older, we tell each other. I don't mention the loneliness. Up, swing, swing, high, high. The fear there'll be nothing left by the time the kids are grown. She doesn't mention the message she found on his phone. No, mummy, don't want, no, walk, walk. At least it's not just me, I say as we leave.
My name's Sue Finch, and I'm delighted to have a poem in the Storms Journal, and it's called Have the Best Sex You've Ever Had. That's what it says on a vending machine in the toilets in a pub with kaleidoscope carpets. I feel momentarily guilty for being tired lately, for not doing the things we did when we first met. Someone comes in, so I move to the hand dryer and resist the temptation to ask them what they think about this invitation. I picture us two, decades ago in our rented flat. What we did back then was pretty spectacular, and it's rather nice to think there's going to be more. I won't tell you I got my inspiration from a sign in the ladies.
David Hanlon, An Ode to Sebastian, after Derek Jarman's Sebastian. May he be laid to rest in the hush of a hammock, beneath the tender weight of Adrian and Antony's love. May his body refuse each bigot-sharpened arrow, as bravely as he turned from the Empire's blood-bright call, as surely as he slipped Severus's grasping hands. Let him be praised with the same fierce devotion he gave his solitude, unmoved by Rome's red wine and golden masks, for daring to shield his soft and silenced mind from the emperor's chain. Let Adrian and Antony's love be his alone to claim. Let every soldier who drew a bow stand bound and broken, bodies like leafless trees, pierced by their own frost-bitten war. And let him rise from that grove of splintered trunks, unbound, unbroken, bathed in the endless light of an unsetting sun, where no chain burns, where no body begs to be spared, where the only empire is love, and it does not fall.
My name's Vicky Allen, and this is Boating Pond. Sun prickles our necks, pale skin pinks, freckles in August's lazy warmth. Across the Irish Sea, salt breezes come low, soothing. My hair lifts strands across hot face. We join the queue, hire a rowing boat, and take up our oars, bold, clunking in our inexperience, confidently, gloriously, obliviously awkward, all alike, all clumsy, on the lilting boating pond. The smooth surface is impassive, indifferent to our bright, untold, unfolding love, being grafted invisibly, inevitably. We are braided together. A secret is bonded here, which we cannot yet see. You row, and we laugh, we laugh. The pulse and splash of the rhythm finally settling into peace, ease. We are quiet together now, and finally I look past you to the soft horizon, hazing in the sun, the cloud, the sun, the sun. There they are, the quiet curve of the morns, and quiet too come threads and scraps of half-remembered stories, songs itching the edges of my mind, remembering nothing in particular. I rest in the soft presence of stories older than ours, as we make our own gentle green ripples in the boating pond.
Hi there. My name is Susan Richardson, and I just wanted to start with a quick but hearty thank you to Damien and Rhona for including my poem in issue 5 of The Storms. This is The Bees. Motherless daughters are left without blueprints, without maps to pinpoint where heartache folds itself into the skin, where the act of loving leaves traces on an eyelid. I search for unblemished roots on jar labels, promising organic brands of magic, youth from the milk of 1,000 worker bees. I turn to the bees for hope, for a softening of time, a swarming over shadows that lie in wait to fracture the shapes of mortality. But hope is a tourniquet, a staving off of catastrophe, a slick-lipped trickster swaggering in a sparkly frock. A deception deeper than a wrinkle creasing a road-blocked eye. My mother is dead, and she left no clues, no secrets to aging gracefully, or where to hide sorrow when your mouth overflows with bitterness. I am older than she ever was, lost in this desert, vagrant, waif. My face is not a map.
Chris Jones. Days. Days in the bog, remembering heathers and gorse bleeding out across the hills of tree climbing and hay. And the day my father was the Incredible Hulk, a slash in my leg, the blood blooming in my white sock, and he lifting me from the back of the tractor, ripping his shirt sleeves, a knot below the knee to stem the bloody rose, and his shoulders ploughing through the field as my legs gave way. 2 other days of boys playing football, and I could never understand how they could spend hours chasing balls like dogs. And in school I would make myself small, so as not to be seen as the different one, tilting sideways away from the others. But the dogs would sniff out the queer in me and try to bend my bones. And those wide-eyed nights in my single bed, praying for a UFO to take me away to some place in the movies. A golden cornfield in Maine, far from these dark mountains. And the world tumbled on, dragging me to find you, like a lighthouse in the snow. Its light blinding the city at night, where we, like immigrants, discover the map of each other. Your eyes, the colour of far-off places, sunburnt fields of umber clay, the scar on my knee, a river home, disappearing into the day.
Emily Cullen. Rose Moon Rise. For Kevin during the lunastice. This midsummer solstice, let's dance when dusk stretches deep into evening. As the sun finally sets, let's look east to the far end of the sky, find the low moon's radiance which our forebears built stone cairns by. Let's waltz close to the horizon, aligned to its rising as light spills over the northern hemisphere. In the tilt of this high sun, this lunar depth, we'll build our megalith.
Before the Flood by Chantal Powell. When my eyes are still fledgling blue and before I've learned to fear, they catch me. They cover me in sackcloth and blind in the bag I'm pressed into a prison while my flock wheels above in an angry cloud. I flap free to find myself among strangers. 13 other ravens hop around in the cage with me. We try to give one another room, but our jail is too small. I look for a way out and find none. There are no twigs here to fashion into tools. The cage trundles along on an ox cart, smashing and lurching over every rut and pothole. There are many carts and many ruts. The humans have been collecting a cross-selection of all of us animals for far longer than I've been alive. It's been happening before my grandmother's grandmother's time. We've often wondered what the humans were doing, and the consensus is they collect us just as we collect shiny things. From all around me comes the laments of the imprisoned and the demands of my family. Animals cry out for freedom, to be reunited with their herds, flocks, mates, and children. The oxen drawing the wagons say nothing. They plod along in resignation. They will not survive, but I am determined that I will. Above me, the sky boils in dark clouds, and from off in the distance comes a rumbling growl from the firmament. The sky is so low I can almost reach it even here in this cage. Cumulonimbus scrapes hilltops, the clouds grinding against one another even as the air shakes with spear after spear of blinding light. Ahead of me is a huge wooden object as big as a mountain. So this is where all the trees went. Years of deforestation and vanishing nesting grounds, all for this strange thing. I try to hop higher for a better view, but the top of the cage is even lower than those heavy clouds. I want to see what's coming. I want to know what to expect. My family dive bombs the humans. Let them go! Let them go! They scream, but the humans don't listen. The humans try to chase them off, but it doesn't work. The flock of ravens wheels through the sky, shouting at the humans, speaking more softly to me. We will wait for you, they promise. We will peck out their eyes if they hurt you. My cage is stacked alongside others, prisons filled with night jars, herons, doves, and more. What will the humans do to us? As the first drops of water hit the ground, I hear a red hen cry out her usual alarm. The sky is falling! The sky is falling! This time, she is correct. The clouds have broken open, and the world is about to end.
Hello, I'm Özge Lena. My second poem is titled Post-Wildfire Film Noir Scene. The carbonized field spreads before me like a film noir scene after a catastrophe. Eerie sculptures of burned pine trees reach out to the almost fallen sky. Cones lie all over like hand grenades. I remember papers are of coniferous trees, and the paper of my death certificate will be printed on must be already out there, somewhere in a marked stack with many others, hidden in the trunk of an alive tree. I take a dark breath and taste the soot. Soon my name will be written on it in red ink. All our names will be written on papers in red ink.
The Stainless Steel Bowl That Still Lives in My Kitchen by Maeve O'Sullivan. Despite the new ruby ring perched on my left hand, we're given no alternative but to sleep separately throughout the holidays in the old farmhouse on the side of a drumlin. When your mother proposes a choice between two presents, this third-wave feminist declines the offer of a 1989 subscription to Good Housekeeping.
This is Robert Friedkenter. My poem is entitled Transformation. Blue met turquoise on a half-lit road above the trucks. In the sky, an angel appeared. Voices of Aphrodite or Hera, wings and a hallucination of flowers. No, it was our mother. No, it was Ophelia, drowned in the river among enervated ravens. The fields are full of dancers, fireflies in the evergreens. Deers gather, then scatter, bounding over the road, a dozen or more, leaving grasslands behind. whimsical clamor frightens. Field recordings of a resort, hammering wood, thunder in the encroaching clasp of a pendant breaking from a neck. Search the paths for the open cameo, a scene from the banks of the past, a paper cupid, mother and father, their wedding photo lost in grass. With every image scattered, glass shattered, iron and sulfur, morning dark. In an acceleration of light, the afternoon's groundskeepers sweep the town of bees. In the embers, a lie, a necessary refrain, preserved in moss, stampeding, echoing hooves, preserved in moss, echo of hooves.
The Ballad of Darkness by Rhona Greene. I dreamt of moonlit trysts, meadows and silver flutes. I awoke wearing widow's weeds, holding a bouquet of shadows, watching your face dissolve into the black cloth of night's shroud, untouchable. When it first placed its ice-cold hand on the back of my bowron heart, grief struck with an almighty thud, and the Ballad of Darkness began.
And beginning our third section, we have Satya Bozeman, followed by Sheena Hussain, Margaret Royal, Terry Metcalf, Toby Alfier, Leslie Kerwin, Maria Isakova-Bennett, Julian Day, Joe Morgan Black, Jerry Stewart, Nuala O'Connor, Chidera Solomon Anikipe, Sarah Hirons, Courtney Darby, and Rhona Greene.
Emily Dickinson has sectioned things in her mind. The kitchen with its chipped stoneware mixing bowl, where she makes cake mix just to eat the batter and lick the bowl. Only at night, when all that stirs is outside with wide eyes caught in the moonlight. The bedroom with her writing desk, looking onto the carefully tended grounds. A bed of Sister Sue's hollyhocks edge the path in summer. A soundtrack of hooves clomping and the click of tack, and in winter the sleigh bells. A wide stretch of stubble that earns the nickname the Dickinson Meadow. Emily always looking out, always looking in.
Sheena Hussain, Mother-in-law's Tongue. Because of its sharpness, it stayed facing outwards by the back window, flaming hot tongues of green chilies. Too much banana yellow would scorch it. Dad would wipe the leaves clean 5 times a day, in sync with his 5 daily prayers, asking mighty Lord to shade his 5 hoydens from the wrath of mother-in-law's tongue. I'm wondering what daughter-in-laws must do before the long-tongued dragon's breath hisses at her. Dad says, not making roti round like lid of Khyber ghee. Too much garam masala give her son man problem. Front seat every time, no devalue her image. I never married. Spare the curse of mother-in-law's tongue, though I'm confident mine would have had nothing but praise, prayer, pyari ladki.
Margaret Royal, Midnight Garden. inspired by Amy Lowell's The Garden by Moonlight. Midnight stars, voices mute in contemplation, watching the veiled courtship of pond lilies, rose-tipped blooms, wide-eyed and quivering, each envying the angel wings of the other. Appetite is aroused by dreams of eternal youth. I skim the water's edge, an intruder, shaking their secret longings to the core. They dream of rainbow prisms, starling murmurations, feast and famine of flesh and bone, garlanding their loins in twilight's indigo cloth. I am privy to intimacies that are beyond me. My eyes scry the veil of the numinous, envelop me in shadow mystery of leaf and lawn, a phantom slideshow, filling the empty brain with myriad thoughts, conjuring reality from illusion. I am alone in this. No stranger holds my hand, guides my feet. When is my moment? Maybe you will hold me closer then.
Terry Metcalfe, alone on Bertha Strand. It's the warm wind. It's the harsh, warm wind. It's the whipping of wind caught in my hair. It's the smooth pebbles. It's the unstable, smooth pebbles. It's an uprooted, stolen pebble in my hand. It's the comfort of other beachgoers. It's the distant comfort of other beachgoers. It's the distance. It's the tepid sand. It's the sting in the tepid sand. It's the leaving the sand, the sting, and the nobody. It's the wish I saw in your eyes. It's the hesitant wish I saw in your eyes. It's the eyes dragging along the shoreline.
Toby Alfier, the lies she breathes. The blustery day is buzzed on wind and light. He told her the river was too boulder-strewn to swim in, but she swung out on the tire and she was safe. He shook his head. He'd been on too many roads he could never call home, and she was one of them. This is the season of love and lies, of wine for no reason while listening to Patsy Cline on the old stereo, while dancing in shoes so high it's a balancing act. Kisses so sweet, even though come morning she'd be like the river, not safe and too cold. Fog sits on the street like breath on a mirror, like words that can never be unheard, unsaid. The fortune teller in her tiny house speaks of the unholy devils you cannot deny. She speaks of winter's last chance at ice. You run to the river like sun that breaks through a storm, and you jump.
Leslie Kerwin, the Spitfire pilot, crashes into a care home. Altimeter hand spins anti-clockwise, pistons scream. She falls like stone, feather, through cloud days, tattered sun. Light dark, light dark, light dark. Pressure bears her down, takes straight and level to hell, rips touch from control, fingers from joystick. Look, no hands, no hands. No hands. Drag is winning, the lift beneath her wings has gone. Eyes and ear canals are foxed by false horizon. The ground, the ground, the ground. Tea. She's being offered tea. It is the third crash today. Her burns are all internal, and still she longs for take-off, take-off, take-off.
Maria Isakova-Bennett, Kiki, Queen of Montparnasse. We laughed, my God, how we laughed. Life magazine, June 29th, 1953. Even though musicians have packed up and gone home, jazz plays when I think of her, girl with a black fringe at a cafe table. Every day begins at the river and ends in wine. I go with what she says. All I need is some bread, an onion and a bottle of red. The moon comes when I least expect commotion. Today is icy, fog, obliterating the river. No one knows where to go. Despite an occasional caress, these months since she placed a finger on my collarbone, I've been lugging a suitcase room to room. Only her willingness matters. Kiki of Montparnasse was Alice Prynne, 1901 to 1953, a model for many artists, including Man Ray, during the 1920s and 30s.
My name's Julian Day. My poem is Songs of the Brave. The ghosts of trees rise from ashes of the banned, degenerate books, slowly at first, before mixing wind, stone, grit, leaf, and gnaw down bones to make faces bare with rage, and how the oaks, cedars, pine, and silver birch raged in those hours, days, and months of greedily billowing smoke, and let them continue to be our witnesses to that foolishness and pride of mostly white bread men sat in their halls, housing dismally washed out slate grey suits, their tongues ballooning clowns from terrible metal, and the real text remains written underground in the bloodline songs of the brave.
My name is Joe Morgan Black. It's a pleasure to be back inside this storm. A letter to Jean-Paul Sartre from the waiter in the cafe. I draped your gaze over my shoulder as you watched, hung it next to the tea towel I carried to your table. You paused your writing only to tear open the packet of sugar entombed in your resting hand. Already, your eyes skipped to the notebook page, forgetting to meet mine. You didn't notice how the crystals scattered on the table, spilling from a ripped paper corner stained blue, while the corpse of the packet fell crumpled in the shadow of your cup. I wondered how you theorized my existential freedom, with the coffee I made still on your tongue. It bothered me that you didn't wipe the ink from your hand the stain growing wider while the page was blackened. While I played at being a waiter, you played at never checking the time. What precautions were you taking to imprison my movements on the page? Those winter mornings racing with the rising of the sun, I would polish the tables for your readers to sit, raise the canopies over their heads. Always, as I cleared your place, crystals stuck to my fingers, and at the end of the day, I would lick my skin in hopes the sugar had sweetened the ink.
Explode the Monstrous by Jerry Stewart. Peel back my skin and see how I've tied my sinews into knots over you. I've offered my eyes to the ravens and cast the bones, but I cannot give your flesh strength. Your wounds are stitched closed, yet I fear your voice will never find me. Take what you need of me to exist, the lightning in my blood, my marrow set alight, my heart cut down to size. It is not enough. I am still bound. A woman locked alone in a storm can breathe life into a god, but she will destroy him if he cannot set her free.
Nuala O'Connor, Hera's Sanctuary. Fig tree shade dries the sweat on our skin in the forest of Paleopolis, though the sun slithers through, determined to stroke on. Juno moves into the belly of the sanctuary, and we stare mute as the air around our girl quakes into a prismatic halo of light. Her step has stirred an eponymic awakening. She stands starlit amongst echoes of worship, barter, and the pluck of a long D-strung lyre.
Death of a Martyr by Chidera Solomon Anibe. They will sing eulogies about him. They will wail and they will weep and they will tear the clothes off their bodies in flagrant displays of grief. They will tell you that though he had his demons, he'd been a wonderful father, a thoughtful son, a steadfast brother, and a loyal friend. They will tell you that he will be dearly missed, that his end had come too early, that God was unjust to take him now. What they will not tell you about Ifeneme is all the ways in which he'd been a fucking bastard. Because no man dies a sinner, even if he dies in sin. 1. Maybe if his father hadn't been so much of an asshole too, he might have grown to be a different man. But sons are mirrors of their fathers, and Ifeneme inherited every trait. Pointed thin nose, outrageously fair skin, honey almond eyes, grave baritone, an eye for women whom he had no business having eyes for, and a temper as hot as a blacksmith's furnace. He was only 14 when we, for the first time, witnessed him beating up another person for talking back at him. The victim of his public debut of aggression was his very own mother, the same person without whom he would not have had breath. And maybe this is why we remember the event so vividly. Him seated astride his shrieking mother, hands swinging in rage as the woman beneath him flailed and screamed, all the while trying and failing to shield her face. We remember also vividly his father standing in the corner, watching the scene impassively while passers-by made futile attempts to breach his attacks. We remember thinking, why is he not trying to stop his son? When Ifeneme was 18 and we heard the news that he had been arrested, our first thoughts, and it came with such a searing clarity that it frightened us all, was, finally, he has killed somebody. We were thankful to learn that he hadn't, in fact, killed anyone, but had been arrested for beating a woman whose husband, a pulpit pastor, had pointed to him while preaching against children who dishonored their parents. The mystery of why he attacked the innocent woman instead of her husband remained unsolved, but the general speculation was that Ifeneme had chosen the fight he could easily win. He was released 2 weeks later on bail, and though he seemed largely unchanged by the ordeal, we were certain that he would not repeat further crimes of assault. Years later, years pocketed only by minor thieves and slight ruffles, Ifeneme, like most young adult men, began to search for a wife. And it did not take long before his sights landed on a girl named Odidika. We were certain, and we were foolish for being so sure, that Odidika would be good for him. Sage, beautiful Odidika who sang a soulful soprano as the choir in St. Jude's. Odidika, whose own father, much like Ifeneme's had been, was also a terror in the night. She has lived through this fire before, we said. She cannot be burnt by it anymore. How easily we forget that it is the flesh that has been most bruised that is also most tender. And she was tender, alas, like omo cooked for hours in a broth. She broke into tiny, shriveled pieces on the palm of his merciless hands. On the morning that Ifeneme first caused her to be admitted to the community clinic in Okigwe, barely 2 months after Yakot's wedding, we watched silently and shook our heads in disappointment. He should never treat a woman that way, we said, when we witnessed the bruises that swelled her left eye shut and purpled the many corners of her firm, buxom body. To Fiakwa we saw, and that was all we did. The second time it happened, years later, when their first child, a daughter named Uzoma, entered preschool, we screamed in loud voices at the world around us, but never at him. We shouted, "The man who did this to our sister will suffer the wrath of God." But we did not name him. And because we did not name him, we absolved him of guilt. As we balmed her bruises and nursed her back from the grips of death, as we bathed her daughter and fed them both our meals and sent Uzoma to school in the company of our children, we did not name him. To name one man in a crime as cruel as this, even when all the evidence points to him, is to inevitably name them all. Because every man is a mirror of his father, and all men trace back to Adam. So we said nothing, and we did not look too closely at the many unnamed things that we glimpsed in Odidika's eyes. We feared that we too would find ourselves mirrored in her grief. 2. When Lotanna was born 7 years into their marriage, we rejoiced, because alas, Odidika had validated herself. She had established herself not just as a wife and mother, but also as a mother of a son. What, if not the birth of a son, could temper a man's nature? For a while, our worries were assuaged. Ifeneme fell away from the bottle and fell back into his family. He doted on his son, and his eyes sparkled when he smiled. Many nights went by unpunctured by Odidika's screams and Uzoma's wails. All was finally well with the world. But evil does not sleep, even when it is silent and docile, and hiding in the corners of Ifeneme's heart, in the places where our roving eyes could not search, was an evil so malevolent we could not dare to name it, lest it burns us too. And this evil manifested the day after a rumor spread that Odidika was seen at the marriage registry in Ifite, asking around about procedures for divorce. There are many iterations of this story. Some claim that they'd seen Ifeneme and Odidika arguing that Monday morning. Others say that they saw her fleeing to Okigwe market with a bag on her head and her children in her arms. Others swear that she was sighted lying on a mat on a veranda, recovering from a slow bout of malaria. Whatever the truth, by mid-noon, Odidika was found swollen and unconscious on a bush path leading to the police station in Ukah. The woman who found her, Nnailonze, screamed when she saw the body splayed across the ground. She was certain that the woman was dead. Jumping over the body, Nnailonze made haste to the police station in Ukah to report the events. And this, the haste of a panicked woman, was what saved Odidika's life. When the police came in their truck to retrieve the dead body, they realized upon closer inspection that Odidika was still alive, albeit barely. They rushed her to the hospital in Okigwe where she received emergency treatment, and by evening, the news had spread of Ifeneme's failed attempts to murder his wife. This is what happens when 200 people in a community realize that they are fairly complicit in the near death of their kin. First, a murmur will rise, and soon it will crescendo into an open disapproval, and then into rage. This is what happens when the rage of 200 people coalesces. First, it will morph into a singular malevolent entity fueled by collective will. Soon, it will take on a life of its own and drown away reason. Then, when a finger points to the blue-painted house at the end of the street, and another finger points in that same direction, and another, the rage will find direction. It will usurp the body of a mob, and it will march straight to the blue-painted house. It will scream Ifeneme's name and ask him to come outside to answer for his crimes. It will frighten the man so much that he will attempt to flee from it. He will aim to jump over the fence of his backyard, but the cuff of his trouser will catch on a stray piece of glass, and in an attempt to free himself, he will trip and land headfirst on the ground and break the bone of his neck. He will be found by the mob a few minutes after they barged their way into the house, and the rage will flee from them at the sight of his convulsing body. They will rush into the hospital in Okigwe, the same one where his wife now lies in a battery-induced coma. The doctors will try everything to help him, but he will remain a vegetable for 2 weeks. And then, on the same morning when his wife wakes up from her coma, his monitor will beep with the resonant shrill tune of a flatline. It will be karmic justice, but this will not matter at his funeral, because they will sing eulogies about him. They will wail and they will weep and they will tear the clothes off their bodies in flagrant displays of grief. They will tell you that though he had his demons, he'd been a wonderful father, a thoughtful son, a steadfast brother, and a loyal friend. They will tell you that he will be dearly missed, that his end had come too quickly, that God was unjust to take him now. But what they will not tell you about Ifeneme is all the ways in which he'd been a fucking bastard. Because every man dies a martyr, even if he dies in sin.
Hello, I'm Sarah Hirons, and this is my poem, The Flame That Waits Beneath the Surface Still. They told me not to strike against the stone. The spark was mine, but never meant to live. A woman's hands, they said, are made for balm, not ash nor heat that peels the varnish back. But I have burned in places none could see. The kitchen sink, the sheets, my own sealed lips. It wasn't rage at first, it was a flick, a pilot's light that flamed despite the wind, that hissed when no one looked, then flared again each time a door was closed too hard, too late. I learned to carry flame inside my throat, to keep it small, contained, a red-lit prayer I whispered to myself beneath my name. You think I need to speak to make it known? But fire's not loyal to the tongue or page. It feeds on silence just as well as air. It curls around the edges of the dress, the marriage vow, the crib, the boardroom chair. It's patient, it remembers what you said. It waits beneath the floorboards of the self. And when it comes, it doesn't scream or beg. It doesn't even ask for your regret. It only climbs and cracks and blackens beams. It burns a doorway into hidden rooms. It leaves behind the shape of what I was, not saint nor witch, but woman born of flame.
Courtney Darby. Table Talk. As summer light seeps through our skylight, we all decide, the whole household, at a sturdy teak table, that the patriarchy must go. We eat off second-hand chipped china as a burly bee bangs into a window. The boy says, "Who started it, Mama?" And he slurps scarlet spaghetti through a tunneled-out tooth socket. And I reflect, the Romans? No, before that. A blonde curl plummets into his pineapple juice. The Greeks? I gather wayward strands into a knot at the nape of his neck, correcting my Western-centric mind. And he spins the tires of a levitating plastic truck, a boy's toy from Supermax. The truth is, I don't know. I put tomatoes from our polytunnel on his plate. It feels like it's always been here. Peppery rocket pricks my tongue but it hasn't. Next door's leaf blower begins to convulse, choking up carbon dioxide-filled air. There was a time before, when nature was not for taming, and people were not for taming, when women wielded weapons of more than words, and battle cries could not be silenced.
The Other Side by Rhona Greene. Untethered, cast adrift, I wave crash, I water flow, I tide sorrow past the promontory of rocky life in one direction, away, away, hopelessly resisting the uncontrollable surge dragging me like a reluctant clump of seaweed back to land on the other side of grief.
And for this final section of readers, our star stormers from issue 5 of the Storms Journal of Poetry, Prose and Visual Arts, I am delighted to hand you over to Angela Graham, Danielle Gilmore, Maura T. Robinson, Doreen Herbst, Georgina Titmus, Jack Kennedy, Sandy Seeber-Quayle, Aisling Keogh, Kate Young, Sean McNichol, Shikandon, Sam Santo, Olive M. Rich, Jack Donahue, Joe Morgan Black, Mary O'Donnell, John Jafire, Billy Fenton, Anik Yerim, Moguru Chidiberry Sullivan, Scott Elder and Özge Lena.
Maxim Levin's Credo by Angela Graham. Maxim Levin was a Ukrainian photographer who covered the initial stages of the Russian invasion of Ukraine that began in February 2022. Maxim Levin's Credo. He said, "Every Ukrainian photographer dreams of taking a photo that will stop the war. We know we're reachable through what we see, but nowhere have I found such faith that this particular art can nerve us to feel and judge aright." 3 weeks in, Maxim Levin was caught and killed. He was in a hurry, a colleague says, to find truth, the first victim of wars.
Danielle Gilmore. The Sparrow speaks on diversity, equity and inclusion after the Smash Sparrows campaign, China, 1958 to 1962. Held responsible for consuming substantial quantities of sparse resources and for being a threat to growth. They came with ladders for our clutches. They shot us down mid-flight, our mouths agape. They strung us up in rows like bunting. Their most barbaric were decorated. They came with their banging on pots and pans and gongs until we drowned in the noise. Our buff feathers were made for flying, but not forever. Into the vacuum the plagues whistled, of pallor, of narrowness, of locusts. Around the world the sound echoed, their millions of starving stomachs.
Maura T. Robinson. How to go fuck yourself. Backwards. Up a tree. 20. Listen. Smell a distant fire burning. Hear birdsong. Taste rain on the wind. Retrieve the things you lost. This is how you go fuck yourself. Backwards up a tree. This is how you do it. Listen. 19. You live in a tree on the edges of the city. The city has been here for more than 1,000 years. The tree for half that. And you? Somewhere in between, perhaps. 18. The tree was not always this close to the city. The tree was not planted by human hand, but the buildings were. The tree has stood still, as trees do, but the city has spread. It has stretched and crept and tiptoed closer, and now it is within touching distance of you. And so are the people. 17. Try to ignore the people, but hear them coming closer. Watch them. One night, see the couple take shelter under the branches in the darkness. Listen to the music they make with their mouths, with their lips, with their tongues. I want you. God, I want you so badly. I love you. See them become one, their bodies entwined. But afterwards, hear the sweet nothings take on a different note, escalating pitch. The man shouting, the woman shouting back, until the man screams, "Why don't you go fuck yourself?" And she replies, "No, you go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself backwards up a tree." 16. Sit in the new silence after they both stagger separately away. Feel their words reverberate still. This is a new music. It vibrates through the tree. It vibrates through you. An unfamiliar feeling. You are filled with longing. You want this thing for yourself. But how to get it? 15. There was a time when trees were sacred in this place, but the people forgot. There was a time when chieftains were inaugurated beneath their branches. You want to be inaugurated too, but in a different way. 14. See him there, stopping under the tree to light a cigarette. Something about him seems warrior-like, his stance as he leans against the trunk, absently humming a tune. The sun is low in the sky and everything is golden. Wonder if it is a sign that this thing is possible, really possible. Think about trees, how inviting they are. You know this, of course, but children know this instinctively too. You've seen them. You would think that the coarseness, the hardness of bark would prevent them, yet they reach out to touch it, to feel it against their faces. It presents an invitation to lean in, to mold themselves to it. They hold themselves there. They are held in return. And time stops. 13. He goes to leave, your chieftain. Surprise yourself with this feeling of urgency that surges through you. Stand in his path. Speak to him in the language you heard, your mouth making unfamiliar shapes. I want you. 12. Go with him to his cottage on the edge of the woods. Speak in glances. Speak first with your eyes, and then with your hands. Let him reach out and remove a twig from your hair. Place it tenderly on the mantelpiece like a cherished artifact. Remove his clothes. Fumble. Let them drop on the rug. Let him remove yours and explore the topography of your body, how the forest has made you. 11. When he begs you not to leave just yet, to stay here with him for the night, shake your head. Tiptoe back to the forest. Take your rightful place amongst the branches. See the blisters on your skin, a reminder of why you can't stray far from the tree. Vow not to leave again. 10. Break your vow the very next evening. He is there, waiting for you. Decide you are willing to pay the price. Go with him to his cottage. Let him undress you. Show him your blistered skin. Accept his soothing kisses, like dock leaves, a folk remedy all over your body. 9. Go with him the next evening, and the next, and the next, until you lose count of days, and there is only night and the things you do together in his cottage in the woods. When he tells you his name, whisper your own like a gift in return. You have never spoken it aloud before. 8. There was a time when the trees were sacred, but people have forgotten. In the beginning, the very beginning, there were 4 pillars upon which the world rested, and the 4 pillars were trees. You have to go back to remember, but everyone is too busy going forward, even you. If the sacred tree was damaged or cut down, something bad would befall the culprit. Their house would burn down. This is the price. There is always a price. 7. He keeps asking you to stay longer, to spend the night. Say no. Rush back to your tree to soothe your blistered skin. There is a way for you to stay with him, to leave your home, to become like him, but only on this one night. And if you were to choose this, you could never go back. Decide you will do it, that he is a price worth paying. 6. You don't have the language to tell him your plan, but he speaks to you in the language of the man and the woman. You recognize the words. I want you. I want you so badly. So answer back, I love you. Feel the words hang there, heavy and wrong as indoor rain clouds. See his face change, his smile drop. For once, when you leave, he does not ask if he will see you the next evening. 5. He does not come to the tree. After 7 nights of waiting, go to the cottage and see that the lights are off. Go to the cottage and find that the door is locked. Go to the cottage and discover nobody is home. Call into the letterbox, I want you. Shout into the dark window, God, I want you so badly. Yell down the whistling chimney, I love you. 4. Go back to the tree alone. Sleep. Hear his tune faintly. Follow the sound back to the cottage. See the other woman in his bed. Try to leave, but find yourself stuck there, unable to look away. After a while, close your eyes, but find you can still hear them together. Listen. Hear groans, guttural noises, grunts. See him pulling her hair. You like that, he says. And you don't know if he is asking her or telling her. Hear her moan low in pleasure. 3. After they are done, watch the woman leave. See him there, alone. 2. Spot that the hall light is on. Notice the front door is open. See him sleeping. This time, do not seek entry. Do you hear him call your name as you turn your back on the flames? Don't turn around. Hear yourself sing this strange new song of Go Fuck Yourself. 1. Listen. This is how you do it. This is how you go fuck yourself backwards up a tree. Retrieve the things you lost. Taste rain on the wind. Hear birdsong. Smell a distant fire burning. Listen.
Dorin Herbst. Fugue. I put my severed head, swathed in crushed velvet, in a trunk, winter-proofed, at the end of the bed. My body no longer knows what eyes and ears have seen and heard, but stumbles on every piece of everything. Kitchen table, sofa, chest of drawers, the threshold when I try to leave the house. I return to the trunk, scatter dried forget-me-not petals in my hair, place my head on a shelf by the window facing north. Before trying to relace the parts of me together again, I wait for the days to turn warm and to hear the dunnocks sing.
Georgina Titmus, Give Us This Day, Exeter, 2024. A disused doorway at the flank of a church. 2 sleeping bags, one red, one blue. Junkies to the urban congregation who see, who don't see, bundled, red, blue, 2 leper lives. A lumpen swaddling of quilted nylon, granite, vomit, yellow, lichen. Give us this day. Oh God, dear God, please. Give us this day.
Human Cogs by Jack Kennedy. Mark just wanted to get home on time. Ever since that package had been signed through Congress, everyone in Boeing had been working overtime. The engineers, the quality technicians, the operators on the factory floor. Tamara didn't understand. What about Bobby? Who's going to take him to soccer practice? She'd asked. Mark had questioned why she couldn't, and she replied, I'm getting my goddamn pedicure, Mark. She just didn't understand the pressure they were under. No one did. It wasn't like he wanted to be on the factory floor, working 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week, inspecting every single goddamn drone that came down the line. It wasn't like he wanted to be working nights one week and days the next. It wasn't like he wanted to miss Bobby's soccer practice. Though, truth be told, they'd sooner have had him take up baseball. Not that he'd admit that to anyone, except when he had a few beers in him. Mark wanted to be at home. He wanted to hang out with Bobby. He wanted to go to sleep next to Tamara every night and wake up beside her every morning. But the desires of one man don't stack up to much in this world. A man's got to work, got to provide for his family, just like his dad always said. Even if he wasn't exactly a role model, was wasted half the time and unconscious the rest. Mark didn't want to be like him. Mark didn't go to college, and neither did his dad, but if he worked hard enough, maybe Bobby could. Then at least Bobby wouldn't be stuck in a goddamn manufacturing line. Maybe Bobby could be someone, even if his dad was nobody. Maybe Bobby would say something nice about him when he graduated. The drone came rolling down the line, and Mark did his checks in autopilot. A machine inspecting machines, surrounded by machines. A fleshy cog in a vast metal organism. Alicia just wanted to get to band practice. Instead, she sped down the highway in a delivery truck, thumping the wheel in time with suspect device. They'd been working on the cover version for the upcoming gig, halfway through the set to break up the original tunes. Everyone in the crowd would know it, would cheer when they heard the riff, roar the words back at them. You've got suspect device. Last delivery of the day. More gear from the Boeing factory. Precision engagement systems. Not that she had any idea what that was. She didn't care. Money was money. She had rent to pay and food to buy. Not to mention the rehearsal space rental. And a dime bag, a few bottles of Budweiser, maybe new strings for the Strat. A septum piercing. Hair dye. She was bored of the electric blue, was thinking of going hot pink instead. So she just thumped the wheel and drove, as a sign for the airport shot past her window. Her hands connected to the wheel, which was connected to the steering column. Her feet on the pedal, which kept the engine firing and the wheels in motion. Gloria just wanted to sleep. She sat in the cockpit of the cargo plane, her eyes open but her brain barely functional. Another shipment. Another 12-hour flight. Another layover in the airport Premier Inn. Ceiling fans spinning overhead. Sweat sticky on her skin. Another sleepless night. Another bad breakfast. Maybe a few hours to kill in the hotel bar, then right back on a plane. In the cargo hold were munitions, precision engagement systems, and dumb bombs manufactured by Boeing. A little thrill when she saw the name. She'd always wanted to pilot a 747. At this present moment, all she wanted was to go to her small little apartment, walk up the stairs, climb into bed with Emma, to fall asleep curled around her, to wake up beside her. She didn't get to do that enough anymore. Still, they needed money for the life they wanted. A house in the suburbs, a nice lawn and a big dog to run around in it. The IVF treatment, a few vacations. Gloria would love to get on a plane and not have to pilot the goddamn thing herself. When she landed, she was going to ring Emma. Just to see her face, her snub nose, her gap-toothed smile, the freckles sprinkled over her pale skin. So she just kept the pain on his flight path. A sentient operator for dumb cargo. Shmuel just wanted to keep his country safe. He'd been more than happy to be called up, just like everyone else he knew. Most of his friends had been sent out on ground operations. But here he was, sitting in a creaky chair with a joystick in his hand. Doing my duty, just like everyone else, he'd say when people said he had a cushy job. He was just as useful as anyone on ground ops, perhaps even more so. How many kills would someone, boots on the ground, get? 2 or 3, if lucky. Shmuel was already in the dozens. A target. He manoeuvred the joystick, adjusting the trajectory of the Boeing precision engagement system. A building in his crosshairs. Was it a secret base? A weapons dump? A command center? Didn't matter much to Shmuel. All the targets were based on intel. There was something there, and to keep his family safe, he had to destroy it. So he just kept moving the joystick, the drone responding as if it were an extension of his own nervous system. On the screen, the roof was growing closer and closer, closer and closer, and when it hit the roof, all went black. Ibrahim just wanted to live. Or at least he did, until a Boeing precision engagement system hit the roof of the school he was sheltering in, and the ceiling collapsed on top of him. Then, he didn't want anything at all.
Today the Wind Dies by Seeber-Quayle. Before dawn, pink cotton balls travel above the sea, still snuggled in the silver lining. Seashells carry waves, whispering, "It's nearly 6." In the morning, the clouds swell, join forces, blurring lines. The tide turns, rises, and crashes against sharp-edged lava rocks, breaking at 1. During the afternoon, heaven howls, battering the ground. Even rainbows retreat into shadows, hiding in rusting shipwrecks, buried after dusk. By 5 to midnight, all winds will have died, no longer dreaming of tomorrow. Only grains of sand wash up at midnight.
Hello, my name is Aisling Kyo. My poem is called Greenfield. It's wide open there. A single road, water lapping at both sides, a route to an island escape. Grey stone with white spots and yellow moss, low walls shelter no one. We walk a broken surface, scotch grass at the middle, without intention, mowed by farmers and the machines of their daily grind. Blue skies, fuchsia brambles, snag our coats in winter, when only tractors pass through floodwaters that seep through the cracks between stones. Spring sunset lights pink and orange fires in the sky beyond the hills where the windmills keep on turning. Summer minnows flit close to the surface while the drone of single-stroke engines echo, measure distance to the shore, and at the swimming spot granite steps lead into water, shimmering brown and gold, barely covering a flaggy limestone floor. Night walks in November, and the stars and Venus shining bright, above 3 pines beside the cottage where the light above the door is always on. These past 2 years, it always smelled like hope.
Kate Young. Shaped by the bottle.
When I was little, I collected bottles. Colourful, magical, whimsical, hopeful that a genie might slither from one of the glass mouths and grant me 3 wishes. In time, I learnt how elements were merged in the making of glass. Sand, limescale, soda ash, the intensity of fire and breath used to create objects of beauty. Perhaps it was the glazed curve of a neck that drew you to bottles, or the slosh of tequila, cider, vodka, their tantalizing taste stroking the tongue into submission, the pull of numbness. I have always seen through you, to the raw intensity of your core, a million grains of gritty sand forging the vulnerable child, the fury years, the addiction. Shaped by the bottle, you relaxed into its smooth, cool contours. You became its mouthpiece. Cruel words, like jags of glass concealed in sand, the pain searing.
Sean McNichol, reading The Third Pint. My father was clad yesterday. 6 foot down, solid oak box, the sort he'd like, if he was living to see it. He was covered over in false flattery by a priest who never knew him. He wasn't a man for God, wasn't a man for much, bar drinking. I'm sitting in his local, McGahan's, in what used to be his seat, facing myself in a mirror that has splash marks all across it. He used to bring me here when I was a boy to sit and listen to how men talk. I can't say he was a good father, though I can't say he was a bad one either. Can't say he was much of a father at all, absent mostly, even when he was at home. Not that I'd say a bad word against him. Wouldn't do well for a man to run down his father round our place. He just had a problem. A condition, my mother called it. We waked him well, though. 2 nights, the full honours. Ladies brought sandwiches, doled out tea, and cleaned the house. Men came and went, shaking my hand and telling me they were sorry. They had stories, memories, in which my father came out the hero, and I almost convinced myself at the coffin side that he had been a pillar of the community and not just slumped against it. In the living room, fiddlers and fluters played most of the dark hours. He loved the sound of them, the soundtrack of a Friday night down in McGahan's. The boys kept the tunes lively for the living, though the McKeever twins sang the old dirges on the first night of the wake and near killed the mood. My father never warned to them, called them the McSquealer twins to their face. Said he'd heard battered cats sound sweeter. Always had a nasty streak in him, and the drink would paint it across him in broad and deep brushstrokes. He punched a police officer once, drunk, of course. Had thought the squad car was a taxi, and then took it thick when the copper refused to take him home. Sobered the night in the cell, apologised and was let go. No harm done. The officer's son works the bar now. He's working today, pulling the pints. A young lad himself. He gave me the first one for free, for my troubles, he said. Then nodded that way men do when they don't know what else to say. I supped the pint. A stout, babysitting it really. Slow drags with thoughts in between as a chaser. Wasn't half drank when I got a slap on my back, and a face I know to see offered condolences, telling me we'd lost a good 'un. The best, he said, and I wanted to recoil from the smell of day-old tobacco on his stained whiskers. Thanks, I said. Let me get your next, he said, and waved to the cop's son. Same again, on me. I waved away his offer, telling him I was only in for the one, but he rapped on the countertop, his blackened nails and tanned fingertips drumming. Let a man pray for the dead, he said. Be a crime to refuse. And I relented, thanked him, and he half-stepped his way out the door for another smoke. So now I've the cold remains of a pint and another standing over it, full-bodied and alive. I need to be making tracks home soon, what used to be home, back to my mother. She's lost without him, she says, though she's been lost these months, ever since the doctor gave them the news. Liver failure. Dr. Brennan had asked him to go into the hospital to get managed but not cured. Was too far gone, too much self-infliction to be considered for transplant or the likes. My father told him where he could go and walked, or more likely staggered, out the door. Still came to the wake, Dr. Brennan, which was a nice touch. Asked how the final days had been. My father had refused to see him. He could be odd, my father, if he took a notion. Never liked the whole medical world anyway, and only went in for the bloods and the scan because my mother pleaded and he wanted a bit of peace. I told the doctor it wasn't too bad, that he went quick and peaceful, just to comfort him. The doctor has more to worry about than the agony of a man who doesn't want help. Get you a drink, young man, a voice says. Pat Fee, former butcher, is leaning his belly against the counter beside me. He used to play at county, so my father told me, but it's hard to imagine. Football was different in those days, though. No ta, Pat, I say, and lift the second pint, slopping its head over the edge. Wished by. Whiskey here, Jack, yeah. The copper's son now, Jack, thumbs up from the far end of the bar. Jameson, Jack, yeah. And Jack agrees as he jabs a glass beneath the upturned bottle. The whiskey glows like the oil the priest anointed my father's head with after it was too late to do anything else. He'd slipped into a quiet half-consciousness by then, and even smiled as the oil went on. Your da was some man, so he was, Pat says. God, I'll miss him. He ever tell you of the time he was marking me in the county final? He did, aye, Pat, I says. I scored 6 off him, and then he turned round and smacked me one in the gob. Pat laughs and his belly bounces. Never held it again him. He was some man. I thank Pat as he tuts to himself, shaking the sound out like a pit bull clucking his tongue. God bless you, boy, Pat says and heads off before I can refuse or thank him. Jack sets the tawny liquid before me and turns to answer a call back down the bar, leaving the empty pint glass to mourn its injured friend. There's a hum to the bar now. Voices, men, grunting, chairs. And I think he would have liked this, my father, being amongst them, moving between the noise, happy, at home. It's early yet, not gone 5. A long evening to stretch out across the bar floor. And my second pint is nearing low, and it tasted good, so I flick and point to it, the known sign for Jack to lay another. He obliges, and I empty the whiskey while it settles, rests, breathes. The whiskey is fast and violent. I watch and wait for the calm, for the ruby body to lay in wait, and the head to beckon me in. I take a quarter of the pint down in the first drink. The whiskey is forgotten. A change of air rushes in as the door opens, and the man I know as Joe walks in, looks around, finds me. I never liked him, even as a boy when I was too young to know passive aggression and snide humour. He'd stand by my father, me at his knee, and talk, shite mostly, insults lacquered beneath his words. I don't know why people don't like you, he'd say to my father. You ain't the worst. And my father would thank him. The drink fuzz thick enough to make it sound like a compliment. You're a good un giving that boy a good example of what not to do, was another. I am, my father said, beaming down at me. He's a good boy, aren't you? Joe smiles as he walks over to me, past the poster that shouts about the McSquealer twins playing tonight. My head is floaty. I haven't slept much since the wake. Sorry for the loss, Joe says, and sticks out his hand. Ta, Joe, I say, accepting it. He shakes hard, his grip almost painful, and I have to grab the counter to make sure I stay on my seat. He was a character, I'll give him that, says Joe. He was, I say, one of the good uns. He's God's problem now, Joe says. I laugh. Joe doesn't. He calls for a drink for himself and me. Jack says he'll be over soon. This one's on me, Joe says, for the old man and your troubles. I move to refuse, hand heavy. Less of that now, he says. Sure, your father never said no to a drink. He looks at the counter. I look at the counter. Empty whiskey glass, 2 empty pints, the dregs of a third. He looks to his watch. He looks to me. You're your father's son, he says. I feel warm inside, fuzzy. I turn my head. Tears are gathering. Through the speckled mirror, I catch a sight of myself. My father looks back at me. I rub my eyes. I am, I say, and wrestle with a hiccup. I am.
Hag's Head by Shikandi. A lone woman frozen in leaf emerges from the mist. The sun surrenders, not as liquid fire, but as slushy gold shavings of ice, crunchy between conical teeth. Stony and bereft, she stands eternally, strapped to the sea's hissing sinews. The scree spits foam as cold as dead fish floating in the sea. On Moor's rocky outposts, a bitter song lingers. Desire bleeds into the snarling swirls whipped by steel-hewn winds. How cruel are those gull-clawed stacks of rock? Is it the poet's task to reel in songs of heroic deeds? With all the sadness and the longings, and all the world's myths turned feverish with the infection of their histories. Will they tease and tempt like will-o'-the-wisps? Who knows? Perhaps from the crevices of Hag's Head, a cry will rise simply to ask an impossible question. Perhaps her silence will lift a stone from a heart.
Sam Santo, Learn Canoe. Hanging on my mother's wall is her black and white drawing of a painting of a death mask of a young woman taken from the River Seine. Cues formed as she was exhibited in the morgue, the world obsessed with her composed face. She spawned 1,000 stories. Hanging on my mother's wall is her black and white drawing of a painting of a death mask of a young woman who may have closed her eyes as she lay in the river, whose lover may have thrown her in the water. A generation modelled their looks on her. Hanging on my mother's wall is a black and white photo of my grandmother, from whose life I have composed 100 stories, imagining lovers who hurt her, obsessed with her shyly smiling face. She looks exactly like me.
Olive Rich. The epigraph to my poem Dreaming is: after the Women's Orchestra of Auschwitz and Seeber. Dreaming. I can no longer play Trom Rai as I think of Anita Lasker and hear echoes of Auschwitz, and a cellist playing Schumann's piece for Joseph Mengele, knowing that her life depended on its perfect execution. Thank you.
Hello, this is Jack Donahue, and I'm so proud to be here. I'll be reading my story, Gates of Hell, and it's derived from an experience I had by a real heart attack. Never experienced such pain in my life, so I wrote this short story to at least try to explain the depth of the pain. Here goes. I am not surprised it happened this way. I felt the heat of the fire, smelled the fetid odor of burning flesh, and tried to muffle my ears against the onslaught of voices rising from the amphitheater of the damned. All shrieks, wails, and moans orchestrated into a tropical jungle, avian caterwaul of unrelenting pain. Attracted to the desperate cries of infinite suffering, I pleaded with Lucifer to grant me passage to the underworld. Is not my unrepentant sin sufficient for you? I pounded on the gates until my knuckles swelled into a gnawl and my fist colored into a massive purple bruise. One of his prisoners, garbed in a musty, threadbare robe, opened an alley gate, beckoned me forward, and pressed his greased iron forefinger to my chest, searching for a distinctive beat that would be evidence of some degree of life left to be lived this side of the abyss. He kept probing the left side, poking, pressing, poking even harder against the stubborn mound of flesh, his metal fist insistently pushing against the interior wall. My breaths were shorter, less frequent, more forced with each manic inhalation. An unfamiliar pain seized me, pinpointing the exact loci of the attack upon the central organ aching to escape my body. If this is not the right time, I suggested to the gatekeeper, I promise to return again and again. This is what I experience in a paroxysm of mind, body, and spirit. Sudden, most unwelcome, without any prior warning of trouble incubating inside. The body recalled no life-threatening symptoms in either recent or long-term memory. My body survived the assault, but not my spirit. Thinking back, there were moments I consciously decided to obliterate from my memory bank, but they nudged their way back into my brain, despite the barriers thrown in front of them. For example, while everyone, including myself, awaited the arrival of the king, the real king, the brass name-plated R.N. Agnes leaned into me, stared at me intensely, saying sternly, "You're not acting like what our machines are showing." I protested to Agnes that no one has yet taken the trouble to tell me what is actually happening to me. "Why all this trouble?" Agnes responded. "Do you remember that the EMT in your transport slipped a little nitroglycerin pill under your tongue while he told the driver to race like a bat out of hell to get you here, and that he tore open your new T-shirt so he could install electrodes on your heaving chest?" And she continued, "When you were offered morphine, you gladly accepted." Finally, Agnes said, "After you get out of here, you need to get rehabbed." I obeyed her without objection. One day, not long afterwards, trying to rehab mind and spirit along with body, resisting the urge to look over my shoulder to catch a glimpse of that ghostly figure wielding a scythe, I remembered that the slithering, distorted bodies climbing through the gates of hell wore monitors like myself as we raced along, so to speak, on a treadmill and tried to lift tiny weights an infant would have no trouble tossing out of her crib. Some of my colleagues at the gate wore stretch pants and nostril-pinching oxygen feeders connected to a long trail of tubing that trailed after them everywhere. Others, like myself, had chest hair removed via sandpaper-tipped fingertips to allow for the placement of red, green, white, and black electrodes that connected to a hand-sized monitor, sending pulses and waves to a live stream tote board on the wall. Every time I looked at the ceiling, I saw the four-pronged Big Brother telemetry device watching my every move, sending every pulse and body electric irregularity to the board. Within this group of strangers assembled and obligated to trudge from one torture chamber to the next in order to spin, cycle, and manage a variety of sadistically designed machines, I managed to make conversation with a few individuals who began the program around the same time as myself, like the fellow who rooted for the Knickerbockers basketball team and the charming lady who owned several cats. Upon not seeing them after a week or so, based on our identical schedules, I inquired about their absence. Those requests were met with minimal responses from staff, accompanied by long pauses and empty, vacuous stares. Maybe my new friends were on vacation, they suggested to me. The rules for privacy protection were firmly in place, but you were given enough body language clues to figure things out for yourself. One day, with everyone generally dedicated to plowing ahead on whatever monster station they were assigned to, we all looked up in silence to see through the big glass doors, one of those long, fancy cars that transported us on our own eventful day, with rooftop lights spinning, engine running, back door opened wide, bed on a wheeled cart downloaded to street level. Without commentary, we all looked to the same spot on the wall to check on the pulses and beats recorded live directly on our monitors. No names, just numbers. What's my number today? Is this vehicle waiting? Wait, V? Oh, I'm so nervous. Sorry. Is this vehicle waiting for me? Is it my turn again? Am I still pulsing and contributing to the content of the live streaming screen? Am I dead? Maybe not yet.
There are people in the house, and they've unrooted our berry bushes. Their red juices spilled across the pavement like blood. They've built walls that keep us in and keep out the sun, so we sit in the dark and pray for the earthquake. After the concrete crumbles, the earth will still spin around on its axis, undisturbed, and the spring will come again. The rain will keep falling and slipping through the cracks until it reaches us, and it will reach us. This humanity is not waterproof. It will be found by new waters and it will bloom. This humanity is a gardener that will tend to our flower children, and the vines and hedges will overtake the prison walls until they give way. This humanity is a forest, trunks and limbs reaching for the sun. I will proudly wear the ashes that cover me, for to go gray is to have known color. I will let this ink trail behind me, letting them know I have gone, but I am still going, to the place where the berries grow sweet and the green knows the shape of my shadow.
My name is Joe Morgan Black. The breakup poem from the Cyclops to nobody. I remember how I used to watch the waves, dark blades, licking the mouth of the cave with salty tongues. How I loved to count the sheep, scattered over sand, lying hushed like low-hanging clouds. The flock would gather to my song, hooves tangled in seaweed, as they settled to rest in the palm of my hand. I would scan the sea for ships. When you came, I found you burdened with driftwood. Your sails shipwrecked on the floor of my bedroom. I believed you When you reached to draw me close, when you smiled your secret, I was quick to trust the words you spoke too soon. As I bent to pick the splinters from your bloodied palm, I never thought all along you would be pocketing shards to use against me. You told me I took up too much space. I was too big for this world, my monstrous shape too tall to touch, my voice too loud. Was I so greedy for a place to belong, for a love to feed me? And were you so hungry for the eyes of others, you had to take mine? One moment there was light, so sacred it burned. Next, everything I trusted was gone. The world around me made absence. The sight of you made pain. I found myself to be so huge, so hideous with grief. Daylight fled my face wherever I turned. But the flock still gathered close to my step, their fleeces soft in the darkness. I count them now as your ship sails far, caressing underbellies with a single finger, terrified of breaking brittle bones. Perhaps I should be glad for what was learned that day, proud to be a misstep on your odyssey. I'm sure in someone else you will find a better home. Listen not to the weeping giant cowering in the cradle of cliffs. It has no wound but its shame. It has no hurt to its name. The time was ripe. It was nobody's fault.
Mary O'Donnell, Stars and Omegas. That night, after a slow whisky, after a pill, still wakeful, I slip from bed, avoid the creaking plank on the landing, adept at the forbearance of insomnia. In the kitchen, the dog inquires from beneath his blanket, refuses to follow me to the garden, this cold winter lawn in which I dip my feet as if it were a lake edge. I bow towards what I sense unseen, arms wide and raised, proclaim a waning moon. I have waned too, shrink from so many exits in 1 year, from urns and wreaths, the wood and wicker of coffins. Yet how easily I arch my back, raise high arms beneath that moon, a slice of its oyster face already lopped by time and rotation. Intact enough to pursue me below as I move, stretched star, taut and four-pointed, quietly laughing to the ground, drawing in on wet grass, where I wind, find myself in a tight O. It's the O I'm after, a long O. I play the game, stars and omegas, on wet, cold grass, my magnificence in a drenched shift, bewitched and alone. A pill, whiskey, a dance in my genius garment. I send human worries to the moon, which swallows them for now.
Self-Portrait After Ditlevson by John Jeffire. I can't fret the B chord, my fingers blubbery walruses barking at the sea. I cannot weave a Palm Sunday reed into the heirloom my mother mastered beneath the grief of her faith. I cannot spare the 7-10 split or keep from waking in gutters or launching strikes in a lightless alley. I can lift a grandchild and hold him like a photo moment that never fades. Tell him life is a good thing. It will be okay. Lie like an old man. Once that child.
My name is Billy Fenton, and my poem is called Sometimes the Taste of Air. A lone gull walks the cliff road, speaks the discarded sweet wrapper, finds only a gulp of air, tosses it aside disdainfully. Its broken wing hangs low and useless, on it plods. Can a gull imagine the next? Conjure anxiety like a magician pulling a fight from a hat? Some days I taste air, spit it back, tainted and dark. A sinking man near a shoreline. He's too fearful to reach.
Owen Flannery, Origins. I watch you walk into shore-bound waves, more than shin deep, stroked above the knee. Coils of seaweed cloud the stir water. You are claimed, as if epochs had not slipped by, nor geological faults shifted. Your body is tectonic. It is tested, and dustings of rock glimmer on our wet faces. Throwback images of ancient places, when time passed with its snout close to the ground. Eroding particles, mirrors that turn us to stone. You sink in the give of sand, it yields, recedes, declines the offer of your searching foothold. Step in a little deeper. Mark the spot where the earth quakes into life, the unsettled seabed. A new scale here. You are out of your depth, afloat on a limestone coracle, dipping over the horizon of time.
My name is Annie Kerem. This is Dear S. What happens to your name now that you're gone? Do I speak it into remembrance to keep you in the present tense? Can you please linger? Today I noticed defiant Easter eggs, tentative blossoms, Scylla blue, forsythia yellow, the faint pink of ornamental cherry. The world keeps turning. How does it? Today I felt the grief of not sharing. The balcony is a mess of mistletoe and brave bulbs under my distinctly ungreen thumbs. It smells of rain and spring, a cold breeze, earthworms wiggling toward safety. That single crow that stayed and looked at me, the geese napping in the middle of the road, blue tits on every fence. You became a sky and a bird and all the good things. You became a tree and a hare and the bluebells you loved. You became your poems, your letters, my memories. What happens to your name now that you're gone?
Hi, this is Muguru Chidebere Sullivan, and I'll be reading my poem titled In Gorgeous Flare of a Humble Firefly. To raise the finest things out of ruins, mold sparkling shells from the debris of my disaster, I grow magic from the intricacies of my wounds. My honeyed blade kissing the sky's forests to make way for the fresh advent. A plume of air rinsings through the sweetened milk of the moment. Changes fasten into the thread of time. Everything blooms from its past therapies and defeats of time, cruelty. From the shoreline of this glory, I sprout from my end, my old feet youthful enough to lift me out of the mold into the daylight of this beautiful display. I peek into a rosy climb to honor the aged bulbs that shone through the tunnel to see me to this end. To enjoy me, to admire the glow of this wonder, pay attention to the firefly doctoring its humble way to a glimmering wizard. It falls so close to this moment, close enough to this firmament.
Scott Elder. When I get to the sea. When I get to the sea, everything's going to be okay. I'll find a place to stay. Our troubles will dissolve in the hunger of the tide. I'll scream into each wave, "Ollie, Ollie, oxen," and we'll all be saved. It's really quite simple, just a touch of faith. Nothing left behind, nothing raw and tender. No spike or iron nail, no chipped or leaking vessel. I'll hitch it all together and haul it over dunes, down to threads of flotsam strewn upon the shingle, and then, and only then, listen to the murmur, as quiet as a pebble buried in the sand.
Özge Lena, Lexicon of the Ant. It's said that before everything was the ocean. In it, the tongue of a blue whale, so huge that 50 human beings could dance on it. But it sings songs of what? It's almost the end now. We lie down by the agony of water. Listen. Blue whistles loud and bitter under the death of words. Another shiny party of missiles splashes on the surface of the whale's home. Screams, surges, moans, and groans, then a sudden silence. It's said that before human was the lexicon.
Poetic peeps and gentle persons, in-betweeners and nonconformers, genders all and genders equal. We've reached the end of this very special audio companion to the Storms Journal, issue 5, here on Eat the Storms. My name has been Damien B. Donnelly. I've been your host, and along with Rhona Greene, we have been the editors of the new issue of the Storms Journal, which is now available over at the website eatthestorms.com. In Ireland, it's also available at the Winding Stair bookshop here in Dublin. It's on the way to Books Upstairs in Dublin, and it will be on the way to more independent bookstores around the country very soon. Thank you, the listeners, so much for supporting us and for tuning in on platforms like Spotify, Apple, Breaker, Podbean, Player FM, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Castbox, Podcast Addicts, iTunes, Amazon Music, or maybe even YouTube. Thank you so much for giving your time to listen to the stars of this new issue. Once again, thank you so much to Dublin City Council, Dublin UNESCO City of Literature, Fingal County Council and Fingal Arts, and to everyone who has cheered for us, supported us, purchased a copy and taken us to your reading room, your bookshelf and hopefully to your heart. For full details on all of the contributors to the Storms Journal issue 5, from prose writers to poets to visual artists, you can head on over to eatthestorms.com, and if you click on the journal section of the website, you will find another section called Contributors, and there you will find a list of all the contributors for this issue, with their bios, blogs, features, social media handles, so you can find, follow and be their fans. My most grateful thanks, of course, go to my sub-editor for this issue, Rhona Greene. Rhona and I found each other across Zoom rooms during COVID, which led to me inviting Rhona to be our featured prose writer for issue 2, and we finally got to meet in another castle, in Swords Castle, at the lodge for that issue. And we had a hug in the doorway, and as I've said before and will say again, that hug is a hold that has continued to last, and will continue to last for a long, long time. Rhona, thank you so much for your light, your guidance, your endurance, and most of all, your ability to make me laugh. All my love from my north to your south of Dublin. And the same goes for you listeners. Thank you so much for your support of me and the podcast and the journal. We've now had 10 seasons of the podcast, although we're only partly through season 10, and we had 5 issues of the journal. I started out wondering if anyone was going to listen to the podcast, if anyone was going to know that I had a poetry pamphlet that came out in the midst of COVID from the Hedgehog Poetry Press back in 2020 when we were all locked down and not sure what was going to happen. And now, here we are, only weeks away from 2026, and we've managed to connect over 1,000 artists around the world. So, dankjewel, dankje, teshukure derim, merci, Gurv Mila Mahagat. And until next time, as always, stay bloody poetic!